Many years ago, I was introduced to the life and the legacy, the teachings of Marcus Messiah Garvey. Without a second place, the greatest leader for diasporic African people all over the world. He raised a standard originally from Jamaica, cut his chops in Harlem, New York, and the world darkened his door. He amassed such a following that to hold his convention, he needed Madison Square Garden not for a weekend, not for a week, but for a month. I read his teachings and I was amazed that when his organization, the United Negro Improvement Association, found itself in dire straits, who sent money, who sent support, who sent resources, were people from an unknown area called Greenwood in the heart of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They created what we now know as Black Wall Street. A group of African Americans in the Midwest curated their own hospitals, their own hotels, their own establishments, own jewelry stores, own department stores. And 100 years ago, this year, it was burned to the ground by white capitalists who did not want to see African Americans acquire independent wealth. Well, here we are, 100 years later. 2 years ago, I met an industrious, a saved, a committed, a focused businessman by the name of Bill Allen. And we talked at breakfast, what then turned into a 4.5-hour meeting about the plight and the predicament of African Americans, who, according to data, by 2035 will have zero net worth. We recognize and realize that Atlanta is ripe to be the new Black Wall Street. So I'm on my way now to introduce you, one, to Mr. Bill Allen, and two, the grounds which I consider to be sacred, something that has not been seen in 100 years. We're calling it the new Black Wall Street. We have such a space that 110 Black-owned businesses will be under the same roof, from jazz clubs to organic grocery store to beauty salons to even an art gallery. We want this to not operate in a silo, but we want it to be the template for major urban metropolitan Black markets all over the country. I'm proud, I'm privileged, I'm humbled that New Birth can walk alongside as a participant and as a partner. It is my hope that we'll be able to birth some of the entrepreneurs who sit in my pew so that they too will actualize the call of God that is on their life. It's an exciting time because from here until Labor Day weekend, we're going to be working around the clock. So much so that I am having service this morning in an unfinished project, because I believe that that's where it is that you are in your own life. It's unfinished. It's under construction. There's yellow tape, not because it's a murder scene, but because it's a construction site. Can you imagine what this is going to look like for unborn generations? To know that Black people came from all over the world, not just to shout, but to invest, to emulate, and to duplicate. Come with me now. It took us 100 years to get here, but today, here in Stonecrest, Georgia, you will be the first to see the new Black Wall Street.
I want you to go with me to Matthew chapter 25, Matthew 25, verses 14 through 18. Matthew 25, verses 14 through 18. Our participants of EICC are prepared to take down notes. I want to challenge you to do the exact same thing. If something resonates with you, I don't want you to just write it down, but I want you to share it in the thread, share it in the chat. Matthew 25, verses 14 through 18. Again, it'll be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag. Hear this. Each according to his ability. If that's your Bible, I want you to underscore it. I want you to highlight it. I'm coming to it in a moment. Each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once, put his money to work, and gained 5 more bags. So also with the one who had 2 bags of gold, he gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag, he went off. He dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. I want to preach for a little while today using as a subject, I'm not going to the funeral. I'm not going to the funeral. I want you to type that right on the top of your screen. I want you to put it right in the chat. I am not going to the funeral. I know I'm late to the party, but it's only recently that I started listening to podcasts. And I stumbled upon an interesting one that I want to recommend to you as podcast. It's on Audible. It's entitled, Black People Stop the Excuses. That's the name of the podcast. Black People Stop the Excuses. Each one, teach one. I want you to find that podcast. I want you to listen to it this week. And while that sounds good on face value, I'm old enough now to realize that everyone doesn't have a mentor in their lives or somebody competent that can coach them. For many of you who are watching me today, nobody ever showed you the necessity of strong credit. Nobody ever modeled for you why making investments was necessary. Nobody demonstrated to you the principle of delayed gratification. Home ownership for many of you in your family was never celebrated. Education was sold as a mild inconvenience. And yet, you find yourself today wanting more for your life. In spite of your upbringing, you've been feeling a pull towards entrepreneurship. Tiffany Howard, who is a professor from UNLV and a senior researcher for the Congressional Black Caucus, divulged in her report last year, and I want you to write this down, particularly those of you in EICC. Here's what Tiffany Howard reported, that black-owned businesses have created over 1 million jobs. Black-owned businesses have created over 1 million jobs and generated over $165 billion in revenue. That's what black businesses have done. Created 1 million jobs and generated $165 billion in revenue. The median net worth for black business owners, I want you to write this in all caps. The median net worth for black business owners is 12 times higher than black employees. The median net worth for black business owners is 12 times higher than black non-business owners. The reality is that sometimes you have to utilize remote control mentors. You can't get to somebody in person. Model what somebody else has done. Those are people who you study from afar because you don't have access to get to them up close. This morning, I wish I could wake up the hundreds that were killed in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, known as Black Wall Street. And I'd want to wake them up on May 31st, 1921. And I'd want to ask them, In 1921, how did you own your own hotels? In 1921, how did you own grocery stores, movie theaters, jewelry stores, department stores, libraries, salons, nightclubs, taxis, hospitals, banks, law offices? How'd you do all of that in 1921 with no affirmative action? How'd you do it with no stimulus checks? How'd you do it with no empowerment zones? How'd you do it, hear this, with no congressional black caucus? How'd you do it with no black person as vice president? And yet you still found a way. I'm afraid that if we go back to Tulsa, we would be doing a disservice, because quite frankly, it wouldn't be going back far enough. To completely understand, you have to go back to the allegory given by the Almighty in Matthew 25, where he talks about a wealthy businessman who's about to go away on sabbatical. But before so doing, he gathers his top workers and starts giving them out money at the time that's called talents. To one, he gave 5. To another, he gave 2. And to the last, he gave just 1. What's very telling is that he gave it, here's what I want you to write down, I don't want you to miss it. The master gave it to them according to their ability. There's some hard truths encapsulated in this scripture that the church seems to want to hopscotch over, and that is everybody doesn't have the same ability. Everybody doesn't have the same amount of gifts. Some are athletic, some are artistic, some are just good with arithmetic. While it is not fair, it's a fact. My daughter, Adore, is in advanced chemistry. She's a freshman. Her sister, twin sister Angel, is in college level Spanish. But neither of them are as comfortable as Grace in holding conversation with strangers. They have different levels of capacity, different level of giftings. So Angel is not mad that she's not in AP chemistry. And Adore's not jealous that she is not speaking fluent Spanish. And Grace don't care about either one of them, because she's comfortable in her own gift. I wish adults would be as comfortable as teenagers to say, I can recognize somebody else's gift without feeling threatened. I can't sing like Jonathan. I don't know the internet like Curvance, but I know my gift. Because I know my gift, I'm comfortable in the people around me flowing in theirs. Most of the people who are adversarial to your gifting are not comfortable or have not identified their own. If you know what your gift is, you wouldn't be mad with my wrapping paper. Because all of the tangible things that come with my gift is not my gift. It's just the things that are connected to it. Even when the master gives you a gift, assembly is still required, and batteries are not included. God will let you see your gift, but he still will require work. 2 Thessalonians 3:10, this generation never quotes, but I got to give it to you. 2 Thessalonians 3:10, if somebody doesn't work, then they shouldn't eat. Something is wrong when we are raising children who have a sense of entitlement with no work ethic. You sit and allow them to sit at home all day, and then you come home burnt out and tired, and they don't know how to vacuum. That cup is still in the sink. Won't even make up their own bed. Why? Because you are not raising entrepreneurs, you're raising employees. Because they're waiting for you to tell them what to do, because you've not shown them how to be industrious. Genesis 2:15 told Adam and Eve, I'm giving you the garden, but you got to work it. And you got to take care of it. We got this building, but it is in no condition for what it is that the vision requires. So as a consequence, we hoped that we could open on Memorial Weekend. But there was some sweat equity and delayed gratification in order to have the spirit of excellence. I need you to have this, and I want you to write it down. Students, I need you to have it. Excellence is never rushed by time. Did you hear what I just said? Excellence is never rushed by time. If you want it right, I'll take my time to do it. God is waiting for your spirit of excellence. The man with 1 talent, hear this, only had capacity for 1. The man who was given 5 talents, hear this, had the capacity to manage 5. I want to warn somebody, I don't know where you are, whether you are an instructor, you're a CEO, you're a manager. I got to give this to you. This is what God told me to tell you. Don't make the mistake of giving the responsibility of 5 to somebody who is only equipped for 1. They are overstretched because it is beyond their capacity. The one, hear this, that he gave 5 talents, do you know what he did? He flipped it and got 5 more. The one with 2 made an investment and got 2 more. You just missed it. God gave the one who had the capacity for 5, he gave him 5, and do you know what he did? He flipped it and got another 5. The one that he gave 2, he invested it and got another 2. But the one he gave 1, he buried it, here it is, and that's who the master got mad with. I went too fast, I got to give it to you again. The one that had the capacity for 5, God gave him 5, and he doubled it. The one who had the ability for 2, he gave him 2, he invested in it, and got another 2. The 5 ended up with 10. The 2 ended up with 4. Pastor, I'm missing what you're saying. What I'm trying to tell you is God's expectation for you is double. Whatever area you are in now, God does not expect you, hear this, to stay at that level. I know you have never heard it on this way, but I need you to hear this. There is a sin to maintaining. Maintaining is a sin. Maintaining is out of the will of God. I need you to say to your children, your grandchildren, to your bank account, I expect double. Now, if you don't have that kind of faith, you don't belong on Black Wall Street. But those of you who know the kind of God that you serve, I dare you to declare it out loud. I expect double. Come on, I need you to say it with authority. I expect double. Speak it to the universe. I expect double. That means I want to earn double. Some of y'all ain't gonna shout over this. I want to tithe double. I want to be able to sow double. I want to be able to save double. Whatever I'm earning right now, a year from now, through the grace and the power of God, I want God to give me double for everything that I'm working towards. But God's expectation of my double is not connected to you shouting. It just got quiet. You getting double is not you running around the church. You getting double is not connected to you speaking in tongues. You getting double is a sign to your work ethic. And if you will not put your hand to the plow, you're going to be at the same place. This is not a gospel for lazy people. This is a gospel for those that can't sleep at night, for those of you that are preoccupied with a vision and a plan and an idea. God said, if you work it, I'll work for you. I just need you to have the mind that the goal is double. I want to zoom my sermonic spotlight, not on that one that had 5. I don't want to even pay attention to the one that got 2. I want to figure out and bring in for cross-examination the one who got 1. I need you to see how his posture, his attitude, his behavior, and his actions are polar opposite those who are more gifted. The one who got 5 immediately goes into business. The one that got 2 immediately looks for a shrewd investment. But look at what the one that has 1 does. The Bible says he puts it in a napkin, he digs a hole, and then he buries it. Because you're good Christians, you understand that anything that is buried requires a funeral. God told me to tell you, this word ain't even for you. This word is for your unmotivated daughter. This word is for your unfocused son. This word is for your dispassionate spouse. This word is for your secretly jealous best friend. You recognize that they have a gift. You recognize the oil that is on their life. You recognize that they are doing less than their capacity. I need you to send them a text message and alert every person that bears your last name. I am not going to the funeral. I am not going to let you bury your ability, your gift, your idea, your talent, your call, and your anointing. I don't care that it's a pandemic. The millionaires in this country were always birthed in crisis. God needed this chaos in order for you to be creative. Can you imagine that God in his permissive will allowed 500,000 people to die of COVID, but he kept your lazy behind alive? Because there's some stuff that you are supposed to create. There's some businesses you are supposed to own. There's some houses you are supposed to buy. There's some scholarships you are supposed to give. There's some wisdom you are supposed to impart. There's some books that you are supposed to write. There's some nonprofits that you are supposed to launch. There are some prisoners that you are supposed to educate. There's some foster kids you are supposed to adopt. There are some saints who need to be upgraded. There's some sinners that need to be delivered. You gotta know, I woke up this morning with an assignment and I refuse to let it get buried. Your assignment, if you so choose, is to tell anybody who thinks they're going to be in your life, let them know at the door, I am not going to the funeral. You can't be around me and have no goals. You can't be around me and eat off my plate. You can't be around me and hold on to my coattail. What are you going to do with your drive? Cancel somebody else's funeral. Let them know it's not going to happen. When the master returns and sees that he buried his talent, the master gets infuriated. God expects you to grow. I want you to internalize that. I want you to say that aloud. God expects me to grow. Yeah. He expects my savings to grow. He expects my retirement to grow. He expects my portfolio to grow. On Thursday, we begin our Trillionaire Thursdays. And our first presenter is my brother, who's a member of our church, Jay Morrison, co-founder of the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. Through his prowess, his business acumen, he made history by raising $9.6 million in 7 days. He raised $9.6 million in 7 days. He's a member of our church. It's the largest black-owned real estate crowd fund in history. He's going to be teaching on Thursday night. And Jay Morrison taught me a valuable lesson that I wanted to give to you, and I want you to please write this down. I don't want you to miss it. When he gave it to me, it almost made me jump out of my own skin. Watch what Jay Morrison taught me. He said, Jamal, you've got to learn how to work with a little bit. I want you to have this. He said to me that I say to you today, reading 20 pages a day, write this down. If you read 20 pages a day, you'll end up reading 30 books a year. If you read 20 pages a day, you'll end up reading 30 books a year. If you save $10 a day, at the end of the year, you have $3,650. You save $10 a day. The end of the year, at your bare minimum, you would have saved $3,650. If you run a mile a day, if you run just 1 mile a day, you would have run 365 miles a year. If you just do 1 mile a day. This is the part that I wanted you to have. I want you to put it in the chat for me. I know I'm giving you a whole lot. You're going to have to go back and watch this stream again. If you become 1% better a day, if you make up in your mind that you're going to be 1% better today than I was yesterday, at the end of the year, you'll be a 37% better person. Why? Because a little talent can go a long way. I remember this time in Luke chapter 7 when Jesus was entering to a little city called Nain. When Jesus was coming, there's a traffic jam because he's trying to get in the city, and a funeral procession is coming out. It's the funeral of the only begotten son of a widow. It was all she had left was this boy. And they were on their way, hear this, to bury him. Everybody is headed to the funeral but Jesus. And Jesus said, I ain't going to the funeral. So he laid his hand on the casket, and the boy jumped out. Why? Because Jesus was not ready for him to be buried. I want to give you this word. God allowed oxygen to fill your lungs because it ain't time to bury your dream. I know you went through a difficult divorce, but you are not going to bury your charisma. I know you've been stressed out, but you can't bury your gift. Can't bury your personality. Can't bury your purpose. Can't bury, hear this, your business. All the plans for your funeral have just been canceled. You got to make something out of this. Can you imagine that a week after Easter, your idea is going to have a resurrection? You just missed what I just said. The idea you gave up on, the thing you thought it wasn't the right time, the finances weren't in a row. Will you get in line for the Easter of your concept? My grandfather, Booker T. Williams, a veteran of the war, Spent all of my life in Veterans Hospital. Most of my mother's life, he was in and out Veterans Hospital. My sister asked my grandmother, my late grandmother, Pauline Lucas Williams, what do you think Granddaddy would have been had he not gotten sick? My grandmother paused, looked out the window, then looked at Tamar. And she said about this man she was married to, had 10 children with. She said of my grandfather what I never once said of you. She said, Tamar, he was so busy working, he never had time to dream. He was so busy trying to provide for his family, he never conceptualized possibilities. I would hate, as your pastor, to have to eulogize somebody who's been dead a long time. I would have to comfort your family, knowing your children and your grandchildren never saw your dream. They just saw you tired, saw you burnt out, saw you struggling, but never saw you fulfilled. I know for some of you it's going to be upsetting, but I'm telling you as your pastor, I'm not coming to your funeral if you don't work while it's day. For night is coming, and no man knows the day, and no man knows the hour.